Pittsburgh Steeler fans, welcome back to another episode of the Scho Bro Show. This is Steel Curtain Network editor Dave Schofield coming at you Tuesday night, a little bit after 9. Where else would you rather be, Steelers fans? And with me as always, except when he's not, this week is not one of those not weeks, is my big brother Rich, Big Bro Scho. How are you doing tonight after a week off?
It's great to be back to the Scho Bro Show. So.
Yeah, and honestly,
hey, to miss out last week. It was one of those. I told you that didn't know if we would have said we could have started at 9:20 or so last week, I maybe could have pushed it and made it.
Well, if you would have been here at 9:20, you really would have bailed me out. Because for those of you that are wondering with what happened last week with Jeffrey Benedict, who was filling in, we lost him. He came back, and then he couldn't even get back to me until the next day because of the storms that rolled through Pittsburgh. He and that area, I know he's not right in Pittsburgh, but not ridiculously far away. But he lost not just internet, but he also lost cell service.
It was crazy. We got a little bit of that here. Mm-hmm. And although we were getting some of it here, I could tell there were places that were getting it a lot worse than we were.
Yeah, and I know there was a lot of people that were without power for a long time in the Pittsburgh area. I don't know if they've got everything restored or not.
Actually, Dave, just east of us in Cumberland, they were getting just hammered for hours and hours. They were just bad thunderstorms training over top of them just to our east. And then I saw that storms were coming around working their way up towards Pittsburgh. So,
yeah. So I was here solo for about half the show. I tried to do it the best that I could. It's nice to not have to be the only one speaking. So, Rich, you can take it away for the rest of it. No, just kidding.
Would have been nice if hashtag Pay Kyle would have been
If Kyle could
actually I would have known if you'd have texted me. I maybe could have jumped in and helped bail you out. But I was
Rich. I could barely text Jeffrey because I was trying to do the show. I was doing my best. But it was nice to see Jeffrey. Hopefully we can get him back for another show for another thing sometime. But Rich, you haven't had a show since the draft.
I have not.
So are you ready to talk about the 2026 mock drafts that are already out now?
Sure. Love to. Pittsburgh Steelers packaged together all of their draft picks except for all of their draft picks, and they move up to pick first overall and draft Arch Manning. There you go.
No, it was
there's my mock draft.
Well, there's been a couple that have been out there so far. One had them at picking at 13 and taking a defensive tackle again. Another one had the Steelers. I don't know where they picked, but I know they got the quarterback from LSU. But how could you do it? My biggest thing is, honestly, you want to know the truth? I sometimes will look at a mock draft for the next year, not because of the players, not because of the positions, not because I want to see who the Steelers pick. I want to see where they think the Steelers will pick, meaning how their 2025 season will finish out. And generally, I've seen the Steelers picking in the early teens in past years, and they've not picked in the early teens. It's always been later. So it is what it is. But do you want to, before we dive into tonight's topic, where we're going to say, okay, we're going to look at it more from position groups.
Thank you, Sherry. Yes, that would be that would be one short draft show, and Jefferson would love it. Yes, he would.
Yeah. Yep.
He'd be like, and we're done.
And we're done. That's the Mike Ditka, Ricky Williams draft.
Exactly.
Yeah. So,
we talking the regular Ditka or the miniature Ditka?
No, we were talking the regular Ditka. I just remember him with the cigar saying, "I got my guy. I'm done." Yeah. So, do you want to, before we dive into just looking at position groups, I'm trying to think. It's not like there's a bunch of news.
Come on, you got to bring up the one.
Helmet.
Come on, it's not Steelers news, but you got to at least bring it up. I can bring it up as Steelers news.
Okay.
That Boz now reigns supreme.
Oh, of that. You know what? And what's crazy is this. All right. Yeah, we know that, that Chris Boswell took over the reign of best kicker in the AFC North last year, which therefore made him the best kicker in the NFL. And now he's the only, I don't know. I was going to say, is he the only Pro Bowl kicker? I know he's the only All-Pro kicker left in the division, I'm pretty sure. I don't. In Cincinnati there, I think he might have had it. Was it McPherson? I don't know if he's had a Pro Bowl or not. But yet again, here's what's crazy. I do my article. I do this series every year after the draft. There's a series of articles right now on SteelCurd.network.com. It's getting to know the undrafted rookie free agents. Today's article, and all I do is I give information. I don't give there's no commentary with it at all. It's just information. It's the measurables. It's the depth chart at that position for the Steelers. It's a little, telling some stats about their college time. It's their draft profile breakdown. It's some highlights that you can see. Today was Pitt kicker Ben Sauls. Ben, I'm pretty sure it's Ben. That who I profile. And I couldn't believe people in the comments are like, yeah, Boz is getting up there and Sauls is the real deal. The Steelers might be looking to make a change. I'm like, you do realize that he's coming off an all-pro season. First all-pro season that he's had.
He's never kicked better than he kicked last year.
Exactly. I mean, there's nothing. And then someone else is like, what a waste of time to have another kicker when it's going to be Boswell. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I don't want people to think that this is speaking bad of our commenters at SteelCurd.network.com because we have a great community, great stuff. There is one guy, the guy that said this always, he drives me nuts. He starts every comment with the same tagline. And if you have to say your credentials of how long you've been a Steelers fan, then chances are you probably don't have a lot of wise things to say. Because if you really had wise things to say, you would just let the wise things stand for themselves. Not to say, well, I've been a fan since blah, 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 blah. Anyway, so, and that said, why even have another kicker when it's going to be Boswell? Do you want Boswell taking every kick in training camp and every preseason game? I sure don't. No.
And no team does that. No team does that.
And the reason you do, and the thing is, this is a great place for that kid from Pitt to come in, kick where in the stadium he's. Oh my goodness, he had a 58-yard field goal last season, at Acrisure Stadium. So, and it's great for him to come in. It's the same town, but. Because it's like, are you fighting for the roster spot in Pittsburgh? No. What they're doing is they're giving you a chance to highlight your skills for other people to see. That you don't have to move away, travel away from where, at least where you went to school, and then you can highlight your skills for all the other teams.
Just ask Matthew Wright how that works.
Yeah, exactly.
He comes in and kicks for us and he has been on rosters then.
Yeah. I mean, because when Boz was hurt, he was called in here for a little bit.
That's right. And it's like, you ask any of those guys if they understand how, like, they understand how it works. They understand what they're doing. They understand kind of what it takes and kind of how the game's played for kickers. They get it. They know it. They understand it. And so it's not that big a deal to them. Yeah.
I think all he's got to do is show that he's one of the best 32 kickers in the NFL, and I think he's going to be fine. You don't have to be the best kicker on your team, because other teams, that's one of those positions they're going to notice. So yeah, and there was someone else before.
You realize
it was kind of doing the same thing. I can't remember who it was.
In terms of the Steelers, you could be the second best kicker on your team and be the second best kicker in the league, in the NFL.
Yeah, you could, because we know how Boz was last year. All right,
that's right.
Okay. Real quick, give me if there's any overall things you want to say about the draft class since you haven't had an opportunity before we then jump into what we're going to talk about.
I don't so much want to talk about the draft class. I would just like to say something quickly about the draft.
Okay.
And that is Omar sticking to the strategy.
Yeah.
Sticking to the strategy.
Yeah.
Come in, go in with a strategy, with a plan, sticking to it, going with it, and another potentially strong draft class. I have to say potentially strong because these guys haven't taken a snap in the NFL yet. Yeah. So I always say, we really can't totally grade these guys yet. But you could see what the plan was, the kind of guys they were wanting to go get. They got the guys I think they wanted, and it has the opportunity to be another great draft class.
Yeah, and it's interesting because we talk about sticking to the plan. This is really what makes me like the draft so much is this. Did we know that was the plan? Did they tell us that was the plan? No, but we believed that the indications were that was the plan. So what was nice is to see what we when I say we, I'm talking about Steelers fans. What we thought, especially Steelers fans that are more in the know. The casual Steelers fan might have been thinking, "Oh, they have to go quarter." No, we understood this was not the year to do it. They just wasn't there to go out and go high and get a quarterback. Because you want to know the truth, they went really low, and I don't know that they could have got a better quarterback than what they got there. Honestly,
yeah, that I'll be interested to see how it works out because where you end up making that draft pick, if Howard turns out to be a career backup, if he turns out to be Landry Jones,
yeah,
that's fine at that draft pick.
That's
if he turns out to be anything more than that, it was a steal.
Well, I'm just saying, even and it's already if he ends up being Landry Jones, not like us, and I've said this on so many different podcasts, not in skill set, but in role. We're talking role.
Correct.
We're not talking, because somebody like, well, Landry Jones, he was this. No, we're talking role. If he ends up being Landry Jones' role, which meant even here beyond his rookie contract, which is kind of like a Mason Rudolph role, very similar to. If he becomes that, it's already a steal. Because you get that, the Steelers, it took the third or fourth round to get that the last few times they got it.
Yeah.
If you get that in the sixth, that's a steal. Then anything above that. And like I said, I'm not going to set unreasonable expectations on the player, but I'm also not going to hold him back and say he can't do it because he was a 6th-round pick.
Yeah, I'm not going to poo-poo the guy.
Yeah.
No.
So my thing was, I like that what we believed the Steelers' plan was, if it wasn't the plan that they wanted going into the draft, it ended up being the plan that they used during the draft. And so I don't care if it was or wasn't
the plan. If it wasn't the plan going into the draft, it should have been.
Yeah, it should have been. It was. And they did great with that.
Yeah.
What did you think of them going edge in the 4th?
That was maybe the biggest, air quotes, surprise in the draft. But honestly, if you think about what they're doing, let's build this into a really true full rotation.
Yeah.
Because I'm sorry, I do not want or need TJ Watt playing 90% of the snaps.
To me, it felt like the right thing at the right point of the draft. I didn't know because I didn't know anything about edge rushers. Honestly, I'd only heard the name Jack Sawyer once or twice because of Ohio State national championship, blah, blah, blah. He was a guy that were like, was it the game to go to the final or an earlier game in the playoff? I remember there was a team getting down there, getting ready to maybe, I don't know if it was to tie and he ended up returning it for a touchdown, like 80 some yards. But, and I'm like, oh, it's that guy. So to me, that was the perfect spot to take a player at that position in that role. I didn't even know, was there here's a quality edge rusher that some projected to go higher, who's really good at stopping the run that would be good for the Steelers in the 4th round. I still feel the 4th round was a beautiful spot. Anything higher, you got to think about trying to work him in to be a starter. Anything lower, you don't know if you really take him seriously.
Yeah,
I think the fourth round is that that Goldilocks area that I talked about with Greg. That was a good plan, a chance to take him. I didn't think the Steelers had to double dip at defensive tackle. I was saying it during the live show. They didn't have to. You know, a lot of people say, I think they will. I think they will. I'm like, well, I don't, whether they do or not, I just want them to take, if they take just an overall defensive tackle, then I want later on to get a big guy that could fill the nose tackle role. And what do you know? They did exactly what we had talked about, a bunch of us. So didn't know if our plan was the Steelers' plan. But what the Steelers did was pretty much our plan. So you're like,
yeah,
I'm glad we had the same
I know.
plan.
They got the Cam Hayward type of defensive lineman, and they got a guy to potentially plug up the middle.
Yeah, and like I said, I knew they'd take a quarterback at some point, even if it was an undrafted free agent, because you're going to need one to be at rookie minicamp. You're going to need another one on the roster for sure. So I knew they were going to do it at some point, and if they didn't draft it, that's what they would do. I even liked how the final two positions that they drafted were positions where you could see guys actually being able to squeeze onto the roster. I mean, I'm saying if they would have drafted a wide receiver, I'm like, are they going to make it? You know, if you take a 7th round wide receiver, are they going to make it with these wide receivers? If you took a 7th round offensive lineman, were they necessarily going to make it? But I felt there was an opportunity. I mean, when I saw it was Carson Burner, I'm like, how did I forget about that guy? I'm like, of course the Steelers are going to draft him. And then I felt drafting something in the secondary made sense. And I think it was probably a toss-up between Dante Kent at corner and the guy that they signed from Iowa as safety as an undrafted free agent, of maybe who they would have taken there. So I thought that was pretty good. Anything else you want to say it so we can dive into this?
No, just thought it was, again, just solid draft overall. Again, not necessarily big and flashy and lots of headlines, but what do I want to say? It was another blue collar draft.
Gotcha.
For a blue collar team. So,
that's it. I'm sorry, I'm reading our breaking news channel. Where that's the thing. I don't mind breaking news, but come on, give me decent sources, not some of these secondary places that like to throw stuff out there.
Yeah,
no, they're talking about the possibility of George Pickens being traded and those kind of things, which, I mean, yeah. So, hey, Retro Rivers threw this out here. He said, hey, Dave, your 53-man roster prediction was great. That's right. Jeff and I, we did our 53-man roster prediction. That was on the website on Monday. I was also Jeff's guest on Let's Ride for the Monday morning conversation to do that. We do that a couple times in the off season, just already trying to look at where their battles, stuff in that regard, which kind of is what led me into tonight's topic with you, bro. What position groups do you feel like the Steelers are the strongest? And which one do you feel are more on the weaker side and the Steelers could potentially dip into this, in free agency between now and training camp, maybe even add something at cut downs or whatnot. Sometimes those kind of additions have to do with injuries and stuff. But we're going to talk about which one do you want to start with? Do you want to start with the ones that you feel the best about, or the one that the position groups you have the most concern over?
Oh, I don't care, wherever you want to start.
Oh, come on. I was trying to set you up for whichever one you felt like you had on your mind first.
Okay, then I'd say let's start with the rooms that I think are pretty much full and don't need a lot of work.
All right. Then let's do it. So if I would say right now, top group that you think good to go, where are you going?
OLB.
That's there you go.
After we just got done talking about where they picked Sawyer, he finishes and fills. I mean, that room, there's going to be somebody left out in that room that is going to catch on with another team.
Yeah. Yeah.
That room is that. I don't want to say spectacular because they're not spectacular, but they're that deep.
Yeah. That I like the. I mean, the question is, and it's the quality depth. Is like this is something we talked about with the 53-man roster. Do you need more than 4 of them on the active roster? Supplement on the practice squad.
Right.
I agree. A lot of this is like, even if you're like, well, how much do they want to call on Jack Sawyer early on? You know what? Even if they don't, they still got a good 3. I think you're right, especially on defense. I think that's number 1. I'll take another low-hanging fruit to go along with it.
Go ahead. I wonder if it's my next low-hanging fruit.
I'm going with specialists, all 3 of them.
Oh.
The Steelers are in such good shape. Now, I don't know about a long snapper, but, if there's an injury there. The Steelers are in such good shape at specialists. They have quality guys. They have more quality guys than what they can keep at both punter and even kicker, as we were already talking about. I think that group is very strong when it comes to your 3 specialists.
Okay.
So,
yes.
Yeah, they could even if something happens to somebody, you even got during camp, you've got somebody else right there ready to roll. So I'm pretty happy with that. So
I've got another one.
Okay, go for another one.
This might be one of the this would maybe be your good for your unpopular opinion. Okay. But as it stands right now, I'm totally 100% fine with the wide receiver room.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up too.
Honestly, with the addition of Robert Woods,
yeah,
that room is now tremendously deep.
Yeah,
but it's not just deep; it's talented as well.
Here's the
now,
thing.
Some of those talents are very, when you get to certain guys, they're very. They're a specialty, strength. They're a niche, but overall, it's a pretty solid group they've got there now.
I agree, especially because I'm like, it's hard to cut down there. I called the signing of Robert Woods Roman Wilson insurance. That's what I called it.
Yeah,
because if Roman Wilson doesn't become, because we don't know what he is. He did some practicing last year, but we didn't really see anything in a game with him when he got hurt the first padded practice of the year. The fact that he couldn't get on the moving train, let's just say it. It doesn't. It shouldn't be a massive mark against you, but it's definitely not something that's marked for you. If you're someone who can still get on the moving train after missing all that time, then that's a bonus. If you're someone who can't, that shouldn't be like, oh, you can't develop into anything. Now, could it mean that? It could. But the fact that they didn't feel like they could get him into the games at all, because remember, he was hurt, then he was coming back. He was inactive, and on the IR. So to me, that's what I'm like, okay, well, they'll know if Roman Wilson isn't going to be able to do it. That's why you have somebody like Robert Woods. Now, if they go out and do something like trade George Pickens, and don't get another wide receiver in return there, I don't get then it's a whole different story. But at least they would still have the bodies. They would. I'm only saying this because there's a discussion going on our Slack channel about. I don't get the point of trading him now. If you're going to trade him during the draft. Now, if you're going to trade him, actually let him do something first and maybe get more for him. But if George Pickens were to be traded, would you look at this wide receiver room and would you think it would be in better shape than what it was last year when they were struggling?
No.
If it is, let's just. I wouldn't say that it wouldn't. No. I would say it wouldn't be significantly better. You know what I'm saying? That it might be a little, depending on how guys work out. But I don't think
the issue right now, part of the reason I look at this room and say this room is really in good shape right now is because you've got a bona fide, 1A and 1B, basically, with Metcalf and Pickens. And then you got plenty other guys who can fill certain roles in the wide receiver room. And can do guys that can do some of the other little things, right?
Yeah.
And when I say little things, it doesn't mean that actually what they're doing is little, but you've got the guys that you can even call the Ben Skoroneks and the things, and let them just do those things that they're good at, and they won't have to do more because you've got the guys to do more. That's where I felt we were short last year. It wasn't that we didn't have good guys, but our overall talent level in the room did not match what other teams could put on the field.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, it can. We'll see.
I just want people to know, what I'm even talking about. That's Jeremy Betts put this in our breaking news channel. I can't say the guy's name. John, is it Frisella? Yeah, I always want to. Yeah, to NFL writer and insider. He says under his ex bio, I think he used to be at Bleacher Report, is what it says here. He has his own website, I guess. He's the one that said that 14 minutes ago said the Pittsburgh Steelers are working on a deal to send wide receiver George Pickens packing. I'm not saying I believe it, but just so you know, it wasn't just pulling it out.
No, you didn't realize, Dave, they're paying for a vacation for him to Europe.
Oh, they're going to send him packing. Yeah.
Yeah, send him packing.
Yeah, they're going to send him packing to Ireland to do a tour there with some of the stuff going on. So, yeah. So, I mean, it is what it is. So, I think you're right about where it sits right now with wide receiver. I'm going to say this. How do you feel now about defensive line?
Oh, no, I don't. That's a room right now that I don't think anything more needs to be done, even though they went ahead and released Montravis Adams. I'm sure that was because he probably asked to go. He probably obliged.
Yeah. That's what I assume. If he didn't, it's okay. But I mean, if it was like, hey, give me a chance to catch on somewhere else, but let him go. So
let me go now and see what I can catch on. Don't make me play. I don't want to play my way through it in camp and then try to do it. And if he did that, I don't blame him.
Yeah,
you couldn't fault the guy at all. But even with that going on, I feel that the defensive line room is pretty good right now.
Yeah, I'll say this. I think it was one of the hardest things to predict for the roster prediction because of how many people they have there. I like upgrading some of the people they have at the bottom. People are still sleeping on Daniel Ekuale that they got from the Patriots. Like I said, started 16 games last year. They're paying him like $2.8 million for the year. People were thinking, oh, is he going to make team? You don't pay someone that much to think that you're just going to cast him off lightly the first year bringing him in. So you've got some pieces there that the thing is you don't exactly know what all you have. So I don't think it's like where they need to add anything, but it's not like you have complete certainty in what you have because of that being a position that you added a couple during the draft. So that one's more of my kind of a disclaimer position with that. You have anywhere else that you would bring up as the strongest, or do you think we've hit the strongest ones?
I think we've hit the strongest ones.
Yeah.
There's some other good rooms. There's some other rooms that are probably real, for the most part, probably done and taken care of. If you twisted my arm, I'd rattle you off a couple more.
Like, I think inside linebacker is close, but the biggest thing is it's something that you're not going to add any more people because you've already got enough. But there are some question marks like, it'll be Malik Harrison's first year with Steelers. What is Cole Holcomb? We don't know if Cole Holcomb is back to being a really good starter for the Steelers like he was when he got hurt, or if he's a guy that just could never make it the whole way back, but can still be a rotational guy.
the room is full. It's probably good, but the problem is you're not really sure where everything's going to slot in. So,
I don't even know who's the starter next to Queen.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, I don't know.
So there's still some not question marks in terms of needing personnel, but question mark is who's going to fill what roles within the room.
Yeah, that's to me that one. And what was the one I just talked about? Maybe even defensive line. Those are ones that I feel like the depth is strong, but the top of the depth chart hasn't necessarily worked itself out or proven itself yet, is the best way I would say to talk about those. So we're going to go ahead and take our break. And when we come back, we're going to hit the weakest positions. But before we do, guess what? We're kind of off a little bit because of stuff from the draft. And I was like, Rich, who's got 5 minutes of non-Steelers talk tonight? Who is it, yours or mine? We're like, you know what? We're going to give this one to the live chat this week in order to reset it. So while we're at break and as we finish this up, if you have a suggestion for our 5 minutes of non-Steelers talk, just in the live chat, just type in maybe like 5 min and then a colon and then say it. So that way we will know to specifically look for it, because other than that, we might not see it otherwise. So be thinking of that during this break. So stick around. We'll be right back.
Relax, don't worry, no rush, what's the hurry? Relax, don't worry, don't worry. Relax, don't worry, no rush, what's the hurry? Relax, don't worry, relax.
All right, Rich, we're going to relax. We're not going to worry. But actually, we have to talk. We got to worry here. This is living in our fears a little bit next, what we're going with the strongest and weakest position groups for the Steelers after the draft. We hit up on the strongest. I do want to bring up something because we mentioned inside linebacker and what's going on there.
We're not urinating on the fire, man.
Yeah, we're not urinating on the fire, you man. The question is, inside linebackers, can Bruner beat out Robinson? That really is the question. And Roy Countryman on Black and Gold Blueprint last week, he made me think that he can, because he talked about, don't be surprised. Like, Bruner's a better pass coverage guy than what you might think for an inside linebacker, even though he's a special teams guy. And I'm like, if he can at least be not a major liability in that, then he's already better than Mark Robinson in that regard. So that'll be interesting. So
are you? What was that chuckle? What was that chuckle for, Dave?
Oh, for it ain't no junk. I'll tell you that.
That's right. It's not. I was like,
sorry. So I guess you're saying this. It's all the same thing I did.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Pittsburgh Toddy.
Yes. So, all right, Rich. Wait.
Yeah. Go ahead and hit that.
Do it. But before we dive into it, we had a super chat. Claude Bishop, $2 at the tip jar. Thank you, Claude. Says, are you two going to next year's draft in Pittsburgh? Rich?
When Jeff gets us a couple of suites in a hotel downtown, I think the whole crew's going.
I was talking about, like, we need to get like a Verbo or an Airbnb or whatever.
Yes, or something like that. Yeah, good.
We should be looking into that now. Honestly, I was going to be the one to volunteer to say, if I've got to stay behind and hold things down for everything with podcasts, all the breaking news podcasts and stuff for the website and everything, I would take one for the team and not be there. But with us doing stuff with Draft Nation and a draft party there, I don't see any way that I'm going to be able to avoid that unless it conflicts with stuff with my daughter's senior year of high school. So, if there's something going on like that I just can't be away for that. But if not, that means I wouldn't be there for the whole thing. I would only be there for part of it. That's what I'm actually hoping, maybe even for Rich. I don't know how much or whatnot, but what it looks like. I know Jeff says he's going to be there. What's crazy is now the following year, the draft's going to be even closer to me. In December. That's going to be insane. I mean, unless you take the intro, don't even bother.
I was going to say, who was it? Who was it to post out said? Was it Coach Smith or somebody? Yeah, I thought it was Coach KT Smith saying, good gracious, DC traffic is awful to begin with, and throw in the draft. Yeah, Thursday and Actually, you know what? It may not be awful because part of the federal government will probably realize what's going on, and they'll just
Shut down.
They'll just shut down.
Yeah.
Because yes, that is from a guy that lived down there for a little bit and left. Part of the reason I left was the traffic.
Yeah, and honestly, the traffic in DC is bad, but it's really around DC. Like honestly, in Landover, where the Commanders currently play, bad.
It's awful.
Bad. Other places. I mean, they'll basically the whole way around the Beltway between DC and Baltimore, bad. All the way out, getting closer.
All the way out of Frederick is
all the way up
awful.
270 up to Frederick.
Yeah.
Awful. It is
Terrible.
But honestly, it's funny. I actually last August was driving in DC, but it was a Sunday, late afternoon, early evening. Was down there for a show, and of course, my wife wanted to get there early, but she wanted to get there so early. Our parking pass time hadn't even started, so we had to just drive for a while.
You know when
we finally did park.
Dave, I'll bring it up
from the White House.
You know, when you talk traffic down there, you know, the first year I was out of college and I taught school, I taught down outside of DC near Waldorf. And I used to, on a Friday afternoon, I would get out of school at 2:30 and I would leave 2:30 from the Waldorf area, La Plata specifically. And I would drive to Gaithersburg, where my now wife, then girlfriend / fiance worked. And it would take me 3 hours.
Yeah.
And I would then on Sunday evenings leave from her mom's house, which was another 20 minutes outside of Gaithersburg. And I could leave their house on a Sunday night and be back in my apartment in 50 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. It was, I mean, honestly, there are times like if I'm traveling to like, I don't know, when I'm just going to the beach, if I'm going to places in Virginia and North Carolina, anything on the coast, even not down to Myrtle Beach, the GPS always tried to say it's shorter to go around DC. And I'm like, no way. No way. I mean, it's
it might be shorter as the crow flies, but it's not shorter time.
So sorry, we didn't need to. Now, when it comes to actually navigating Pittsburgh, I'll be honest with you. I don't navigate Pittsburgh. When I go to Steelers games, I go to Station Square and take the Clipper. The most of me navigating Pittsburgh is when I used to go
when you go to Penguin games.
I was going to get there. When I would go to the fan blitz and they didn't have the Clipper and you had to drive in, and that's ridiculous because you got road on top of road and your GPS doesn't even know which road you're actually on. Going to or like you say, going to Penguins game, but like that, that's not so bad because it's like I'm going to Station Square, but rather when I come out of the Liberty Tubes, I don't have to turn right to go down to Station Square. I just go across the bridge and I get over there. But even there, I mean, you'd get across the bridge and you'd be not that far from the arena and it would take you like 45 minutes just because of traffic. So traffic. We can talk about all we want. Rich, you ready? I know. Is Kyle distracting you?
No, I'm distracting him actually.
Oh, okay. It's time to talk about the weakest position groups, bro. Oh, Afton's right. She says Pittsburgh, the city of 5- and 6-way stops. 5- and 6-way stoplights. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. There's one outside of I don't even know what streets it's on, but outside of was it PPG Paints Arena? That's just like, oh, this is brutal. Yeah. All right. What's your weakest position group?
All right. Well, there right now, I'm going to take the low-hanging fruit because the room's not full. Quarterback.
Yeah, right now, we got to say that.
You got to say it because it's the only room that you know is not full.
Yeah. I completely agree.
Yeah.
Just because they're not done there. And whether it's going to be who they think it might be or somebody else who they're going to have to go instead, it'll get full. It's still not going to really probably feel. I don't think we're ever going to feel like that's one of the strongest position groups, regardless of how that shapes out this year. This year.
Yes.
Yeah. So that one's obvious. I'm going to take another low hanging one.
Okay.
You ready?
Go.
I gotta go offensive line.
That was my next one.
And the reason I've got to go offensive line is they have the dreaded P word, the potential to really come together and be a very good line. But there's a lot of question marks with the starters if they're all going to pan out. If you want to go statistically, some will, some won't, probably. So, what are you staring at in your room? Do you have a bee or something in the room?
No, I have Kyle doing detective work for me.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Oh,
So
okay. Okay, hold on. I'm going to mute you so I can say something to Kyle. So hold on.
Okay, go ahead. So now I'm going to go ahead and say a little bit more why I think it's with offensive line. The Steelers lost two players that started week 1 last season in James Daniels and Dan Moore Jr. You knew both of those players were going to be moving on unless they chose to bring back Daniels and let Sam Howell go. You knew you were going to have two going on based on the younger guys that you had to fill in. The problem is those guys last year gave you depth and they haven't been replaced. So you took your good depth that needed to move into starting roles, moved them into the starting roles. But as I was saying on Monday on Let's Ride, I was like, but you also don't want to bring in other players that are going to cloud the issue of being able to evaluate these young guys that you still need to see what's going on, to be able to evaluate Broderick Jones, to be able to evaluate Troy Falatanu, to continue to evaluate Zach Frazier. But I think that's what we feel the best about. What's the deal? Is Mason McCormick going to be someone that can be a long-term starter? And you have to say, is Isaac Seumalo, how much does he have left? Those are the evaluations you need to have. And you don't want to cloud the young guys by bringing in a veteran. They're like, well, maybe we got to go with the veteran a little bit because of something. And then you don't get that evaluation of the young guy. The Steelers need to know what's going on with this offensive line, because if these guys aren't good enough, they're going to have to go draft some more, honestly.
Yes.
But therefore, these guys that were your depth, like honestly, you had three. I don't know if they were great. 3 tackles last year. One gets hurt. Oh no, but you're still just back down to 2. They signed Calvin Anderson back, but do you really feel strong about Calvin Anderson? So to me, they had players that were depth players that you knew you're wanting to move in to be starters, but now you didn't replace the guys behind them as much. So to me, I think there's some concerns on the offensive line is if somebody doesn't work out, what are they going to do? And here's what's crazy. Out of all 5 of them, I feel the best about Zach Frazier. And he's probably got the backup that I'm probably the most secure in Ryan McCollum, because he played pretty good last year on the couple games he had to play.
Yeah, I think some of the reason there is just you go from having a good idea what your depth is, what they are and what they're capable of, to now not knowing exactly what your depth is and what they're capable of.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily that room is in bad shape, but I think it's more that when you get to the second level, what is the second level?
Yes, that's the thing. What happens if 2 guys go down due to injury? What are you going to do?
Yes.
Like I'm saying, I like Spencer Anderson. I love him as a backup. I don't like him having to start every week. Okay. I don't know if Mason McCormick is going to be a guy that's ready to start every game in his second season. I don't know. Someone said about Spencer Anderson, all 5 positions. He technically could. I don't think left tackle would be very good for him. I don't even think right tackle is that great for him, but at least he could get by. He's really better more on the interior. So to me, it's just your starters are uncertain and your backups are uncertain. It's not good when you have it that far. So it's not like they don't have bodies, but
well, you think about it. Okay, the room is just as full as the outside linebacker room, right?
Yeah.
But the outside linebacker room we listed as the number one strength, the number one strong. versus now having questions on the offensive line. That outside linebacker room is so strong because you know your starters. You know that it's T.J. Watt and Alex Highsmith. You know exactly what they are, and you know that they are 100% NFL starters. Yeah. Okay, you then have Nick Herbig, who has shown that he is that spot guy that can come in and can continue to rush passer well. He is that really high-level rotational guy. You already know what you have in Jeremiah Moon, and you know how he fits in a rotation, and then you add Jack Sawyer to the mix. So you really have a good grasp on what each guy is, what they bring, the roles they fill, and what you can count on. You just don't have that same level of certainty on the offensive line room. Now, we may feel a lot better about that room before we even play the first game of the season. The preseason may be all we need to get a much better look, idea, better feel, and solidify that up. But that's going to take some on-field time from those guys before we get there. And I don't even think we don't necessarily feel we need that same thing in the outside linebacker room.
Yeah. And also, I want to answer something. John S. listed out about how a couple years ago they started like every game. He listed 4 and couldn't remember the 5th. I'm pretty sure that 5th was James Daniels, just so you know, John S. I think that's – and after they answered him too, right as I said that. So, because that's the thing. A couple years ago when the Steelers didn't – they had their same starting 5 start every game. That is by far the exception and not the rule. So you're going to have to call and stuff. Honestly, I'm going to tell you, Rich, I think one of the biggest things when it comes to this offensive line this year, does Broderick Jones come in and pick up where he left off last year, or does he take a big step back and like he did last year where he didn't come in anywhere close to how he finished the season? I think that's going to be one of the biggest things. One of the biggest things that's going to determine what's going on with this line.
I agree.
We'll see how it works. So that's one that I think is weak. How about you? Anything else you think that's overly weak?
No, those were the two that the quarterback room, not because it's not full, is the easiest one, and then like you said, just the I don't want to say the uncertainty, the lack of tape. In the offensive line room is just guys shifting around if Broderick Jones is moving to left tackle. There's just a lot there that, like I said, I'm not going to feel comfortable with until there's some field time.
Yeah,
and I don't mean field time just practice. I mean field time preseason lining up against guys on other teams and seeing what you do.
Yeah, I'm going to bring up one other position. And it's not because I don't like what the Steelers have at the top, but I am concerned about the depth at safety. They have 3, and then they have Miles Killebrew, and then the next one you would probably go with is an undrafted free agent is your next best guy. Maybe he works out, makes the team. Maybe I'm like, I wanted to keep 5 safeties because I don't like to count Miles Killebrew because, like I said to Jeff, he played 9 defensive snaps last year. 9. He's your special teams captain. So in essence, if you only keep 4 and Killebrew's one of them, you really only have 3. And that could be a little bit scary if guys go down. And we saw 2 years ago what happened, with what happened with the Steelers at safety. So to me, I don't call it a weak position, but that's one where I would say I'm worried if somebody goes down that they're in trouble. I think they have weak depth. Because I don't even know of any corners that could fill in at safety right now. There might be some on the team, but I don't even know.
But TJ back here, he can play safety.
Yeah, but TJ plays some safety. So, but then you have just a bunch of other groups that you're like, hey, it's not that they're bad. It's not that they're good. Got to see how it works out. I think corner is one that I could see there. I think they got a lot of numbers at corner. A running back I could see now getting there, falling there. And tight end, I kind of see that too. Not like it's super strong or super weak. I like Freiermuth and Washington at the top, but Depends on how many you want to keep. That's when you almost could have set as a strength. So, and with that, I think
that would have been that one. That room was my next strength room.
Was your next strength? Yeah.
Pushed me.
Like it's not like if you had to list so many of them. So if you were putting them in order with everything else. All right, Rich, you ready for our 5 minutes of non-Steelers talk?
Let's do her.
All right, what's our topic?
I don't know.
Did you look in the live chat for me?
Yeah, I think I saw two. I think I saw two early on, and I think that's all I saw.
I saw 2. I know I saw 1. I only saw 1. So I'm looking back now. So what do we got? So if you find it and you pick which one you want, go for it. So my goodness, how far back do I have to go?
I remember the one. I remember the one that I saw. I gotta remember what that was.
I only remember.
We could talk about the 5 minutes of funk.
Yeah.
It ain't no junk. Pull your bottom off tree stump.
Yeah.
The lady's real pretty from city to city.
Now we're getting down to the nitty gritty.
That's right.
From the bottom to the top to the top to the bottom. Sorry. We can't help ourselves.
We can't help ourselves. Yeah,
okay.
You get us started. So it was Afton that put out what was your favorite book.
All right, you want to do that?
We can do that.
All right. Hey, bro, what's your favorite book? This might. He doesn't say anything. I think.
Okay. I will say one. I'm going to say one specifically, and then I'm going to go a little bit broader. Okay. Yeah. How about Dan Rooney? My 75 years with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
There you go.
Okay, but honestly, I've read a ton of Steelers books, and I've never read a Steelers book I haven't enjoyed.
Yeah. Did you read Palomalu?
I did not read Palomalu. No.
Okay.
I did
Here's
not.
the thing about that book. I've got a copy of it. If you need to, I can hook you up with that one. There you go. Pittsburgh time. Still going with it. All right. Here's the thing about Palomalu. Palomalu was a difficult. I didn't read all of it. I read parts of it. It was an extremely difficult read for me because it was very small print, very small margins, lots of stuff on a page. And it was hard for me to stay focused, although it was intriguing. It was great information, but it was really tough for me to read for that reason. Because I mean, it was so much packed on one page. You open it up and you looked at a page, it was kind of looked overwhelming. Now, On the Clock, Jim Wexell's book after that was the exact opposite when it came to formatting and everything. And that was a really good book. But these are Steelers books. It was supposed to be non-Steelers talk.
Okay, ready? I can give you some others. Some other things I like to read. I've read almost every book written by Shelby Foote on the Civil War.
Okay.
I love to read Civil War stuff, and particularly good. Then I get into some weird stuff. Okay. People will, though, knowing me, will understand this. So there's a guy named Bill Heavey.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Has done several books. Bill Heavey, I think he still does once in a while, does the back page on Field and Stream. Okay. Which is ironic. Okay, Bill Heavey's actually from Montgomery County, Maryland.
Okay.
But he's kind of an outdoorsman. Okay, but he tells these, but he labels himself as a very novice or very, I don't know, almost clumsy outdoorsman. And some of the stuff he writes is so, as outdoor stuff, the stories he tells are so freaking hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
So, like some of the names of some of the books that he's written are let's see. Should the tent be burning like that? That's,
yeah.
He talks about, don't eat the beef jerky. It's like if somebody gives you beef jerky, do you trust it or not, or things like that, And I read a lot of outdoor stuff too. There's another guy. Oh, what is his name? Patrick. I lost his last name. He wrote all his stuff are little short stories and things like that. Like he does a story, and never sniff a gift fish.
Okay. Is anyone's really
Things like
surprised
that,
by
so.
some of these titles that we're getting from Rich? So, So I'll tell you.
So
As-
I read Steelers, I read Civil War, I read Outdoors. Those are my three go-tos.
I despised reading. For those of you that might not know, I wasn't even found out that I was dyslexic till I was in college. But they should have known based on my scores in everything but reading. I could barely pass stuff with reading, but would do great in everything else. I could not. I could read. You could hand me a book. I could read you the entire page, word for word, out loud, and you could ask me, "What did that say?" And I could say, "I don't know. I was thinking about something else." I could bring it in my eyes and give it out my mouth, and not even process what was going on. I did not read for enjoyment. I would fight reading as much as I could. When I changed and started reading again was when I got a book. I'm pretty sure it was for my 30th birthday. And that book was called Quiet Strength by Tony Dungy. That was the book that got me reading again. So so that's one that got me started. Then there was a book that our sister had given my wife, and I picked it up and read it. It was a thriller. And I'm like, this is great. So then I started looking by stuff from the same author. His name is Ted Decker, that writes he's technically a Christian author, but he writes a lot of suspense and thrillers and everything. Then I got into his fantasy series, the Circle series. That stuff was really, really good. Out of all his books, it was part of that series, with the characters associated with it. It's called Emmanuel's Veins. Is one that I really liked. But I'll be honest with you, people are like, well, what book have you read more than any? To be 100% honest, the answer to that is the Bible. A lot of great stuff there. That's the one that I've read the most. But if you really want to read a decent
But you haven't read it cover to cover the most.
Really?
Have you read it cover to cover more than any other book?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Sorry, for us where we went to school, I had books that I read cover to cover multiple times every year.
Gotcha. I've read it cover to cover the most of any other book. Although there's some of those other ones, like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Charlie the Great Glass Elevator, I would read as a kid, but no, this one I've read more. And I will say this, that if you're really looking for a book, if you're interested in what's going on, you can go to Amazon, you can look up David Schofield, and you can find this book called Ghost Warriors. The sequel should be coming out this calendar year. 2 years ago, it was supposed to come out. Then we started FFSN, and I couldn't get around to getting everything done with it. Last year was when our mom went into the hospital and then the nursing home with everything, and I couldn't get to it. This year, hopefully, life doesn't get in the way, and it'll be out by September. For those that are wondering, and I saw some people mention stuff in the live chat. Although we need to go, neither one of us ever mentioned our cousin's good friend. That I've never read any of his books. Have you ever read John Grisham books? Because our cousin is good friends with him. So I just thought that.
Which cousin's good friends with him?
The one that's also a lawyer.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's who I thought we were talking about, but I wasn't 100% certain.
Yeah. So
no, I've never read a John Grisham.
I haven't either. I've seen movies, but no, I've never done those. So, that's funny. Sherry Richards says all the old Star Wars books are awesome. I've read not a lot of the old. I've read various different ones of those at times. So there. Kathy says she needs to reserve a signed copy when the new book comes out. Absolutely, we'll be doing all that hopefully before the season starts. So, Rich, we got to get to this big question because we're about out of time. All right.
Yep.
Which one you want to do? I want to do it.
Know. I don't know. You made me pick before, so I'm making you pick now.
Okay. So this. Do we want to go positive or do we want to go negative?
Well, there's reasons to go with each of them. Okay. You know what? Let's go with the positive, but let's eliminate OLB.
Okay, because we kind of had a consensus of outside linebacker of the group that you felt the strongest. So it's just going to be this. We'll just say this. We have the consensus of outside linebackers, what we felt was the strongest group. I mean, my goodness, you have a forward defensive player of the year, things like that. What do you feel is the strongest position group outside of outside linebacker on the Steelers right now as we stand here on May the 6th, right? Yeah, May the 6th.
Yeah. Oh man. See, I'm going to do this one from overall, and it's taken a little bit of projection on my part, but I can make an argument that the outside linebacker would be that I could make an argument that your next best group is defensive line.
Okay. All right. That's a good one. Kind of took mine.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you can say that too. We could agree.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. I mean, yeah. So there you go. So I'm going to go ahead and put it out there for people to go ahead and type in. I hit enter. It's not going. There it went.
It's
the strongest position group. And honestly, if you end up saying it's OLB and there's hands down, I'm not going to go anywhere else. Like I said, I'm not. I mean, I think you're right that's the strongest. I'm going to say that inside linebacker for
that's where I almost went.
That would if I'm not saying defensive line, I'm probably going to go that one.
The only reason I didn't go there is talent wise. I think they're fantastic. How they're going to line up
Figuring
to start
it out wise.
and yes, and figuring it out and figuring out the rotation and figuring out how that's going to work. So
yeah. So here we go. Afton forward, defensive line. Kathy right behind her. Agree, defensive line. I don't know if she was agree with you or agree with Afton. We'll say she's agree with both. Okay. Steel Dog 88 says defensive line. So does Doug P. This had to be too easy, Rich. Brent Howell says defensive line. That's where I should have gone. Oh,
I thought that might be where you go.
This is my answer. That's my answer. Yes. Because thank you, John. John Malesko says kicker. I mean, to be all specialists altogether.
We got the best one in the NFL.
How did I forget that? How did I forget that? That was my answer. Oh, I'm so dumb. Sometimes I've been having problems with things. I keep losing things today that are right in front of my face.
Look, the special teams, the specialty areas, I kind of forget of as being around. I do. Because they're their own little entity over there.
Yep. So Retro Rivers also said defensive line. Brian Brown says the OLB is pretty stacked. Yeah, that's why we're taking it out there. Jamie Carlos says D-line now. Sharon Richards, you're spot on, specialist. Yeah, that's why Afton says punter is stacked to 2. So, yeah, specialists, Sherry, specialists. That was my answer. I can't believe you left it for me and I forgot to grab it. That's come on, Dave, you're better than that. So, if anyone else has any more,
are you?
I should be.
But really, are you? I mean, I know you say you're better than that, but the question is,
are you? Rich, they were the first position group I brought up when we did this.
That's why I thought you would say it, but you didn't say it. You said I took yours, so I was like, oh, okay.
Oh my goodness! Because you said OLB, and that was the very next thing that I listed. Oh, how did I miss that? So. Well, hey, but this has been a fun show. If anyone else has another one, then we'll keep an eye out for it there to throw it up there. Make sure you're checking out all our shows. Hey, we're not going anywhere. I know this is kind of a now what time of the season, but we got rookie mini camp coming up this weekend. Then we'll be getting into OTAs. Is the next week or the week after, right around there. That's here in the month of May, and I'm making sure I'm getting this right. Next week, we get the schedule release. So there's at least a few different things that we talk about. So, but it won't be for our show next week because it'll be the day after our show next week. So we'll have to save our special twist on how we look at the schedule for the week after that. So we'll continue to be here. All of our podcasts are still coming at you. I mean, occasionally there's some stuff going on where like Steel City Insider doesn't happen. I don't know about it this week. Because of Jim's schedule. But make sure you're checking out all the content. If you're only here on YouTube, Facebook, X, all that, you're missing out on so much of our content that is just audio only. So just go anywhere you can hear podcasts, search for Steelers or Steel Curd Network. You'll be able to find us. Also, if you go to steelcurdnetwork.com, it's not only does it just have all the great articles and great discussions, it also has the player for all the podcasts right there. So you can listen to the podcast. And not only that, they're in order of release. So if you're like, oh, did I miss a podcast? I listened to something this day, and then I listened to this. Was there one in between it? You can even just go check there just to see the order that the podcasts are. You can scroll down. Oh my goodness, I think it has like 100 of them in there. I can't even remember exactly. So make sure you're doing all of that. And if you haven't checked out SteelCurtainNetwork.com, if you haven't signed up to comment or anything, please do. It's a lot of fun to be there. Like I said, I'm doing my UDFAs. I don't know, for some reason, I almost feel like sooner than later we might almost need to get a worthless 2 cents coming sometime now that the draft's over.
You might. Right now, it just depends on Big Bro Scho's
that's
available
right.
time.
At the very end of the semester too. So that doesn't with college. That doesn't help that much.
No,
so
does not.
So with all that, I think I've done my whole spiel here at the end. Rich, what do you have to say to close this up? Oh, wait. Can I answer a question first?
Sure.
Sorry. John Malesko asked, what's the current roster count as far as contracts? Are we at 90 or close to it? The last I saw, I think it's like 82. So that means with rookie minicamp, the Steelers have opportunities to sign more guys. They kept some roster spots open to this time this year. So someone had mentioned before about with the line, Zach Banner's doing good in the UFL. Whether it's Zach Banner or something else, they could look for UFL guys to sign when their season's over as well. So, no, they are not filled up right now. All right, there we go. Because someone else said, good question. So I'm like, I got to make sure I answer that. All right, Rich, now I'll turn it over to you.
Hey, we have pretty much gone through the I won't say totally, but the vast majority of free agency. We have had the NFL draft. We have signed undrafted rookie free agents. Things are moving along nicely. Now it's time to get the rooks on the field. Can't wait.
Can't wait.